The Extra Point with Ryan Justice is sponsored by The Phone Medic. For the best in cell phone, tablet, or laptop repairs, The Phone Medic is the only choice for you. The Phone Medic also offers gaming PCs and laptops for both gamers and everyday users. Visit one of the 3 Phone Medic locations in Amarillo, Canyon, and their new location in Lubbock today. Hello, football fans! Welcome to The Extra Point with Ryan Justice. Little hiccup there. It's week 2 of the show. Welcome to The Extra Point with Ryan Justice. Hello, everyone. We are 1 week closer to the NFL season, and we are 24 hours away from football being played tomorrow night, the Hall of Fame game. Jets and Browns take the field on NBC around 7 p.m. Central Time tomorrow night. But we are a week into training camp, and there is plenty of drama around the NFL. Lots of things that are affecting the regular season right now. Injuries being the top of the list. We had Cooper Kupp go down yesterday with a hamstring injury. He's expected to miss a good amount of time, several weeks is what the Rams are saying. Jalen Ramsey going down. He is expected to miss a significant amount of time as well into December, after having surgery, I believe, on his knee. Then there was Tim Patrick with the Denver Broncos going down, torn ACL. He is done for the second year in a row. And then, as you saw in the open, Joe Burrow going down with the calf strain. He is expected to miss several weeks. I would imagine not expected to start the very first game. And that is where we're going to land tonight with the AFC and NFC North in our big-ass NFL preview. But first, some headlines being made, the drama again already being cranked up, and we haven't even played a down of preseason football yet. For those of you who haven't seen, Sean Payton taking shots at the previous coaching staff in Denver, saying, quote, "It was one of the worst coaching jobs possibly in the history of the league." That caused Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett and a lot of people to get their feathers ruffled. Sean Payton issued a semi-apology, I guess, saying he still had his Fox hat on. But, look, I watched Sean Payton on the kickoff show for Fox. And honestly, that was probably the closest thing he came to actually having an opinion. And it came after he left Fox. So now that is not to say what he said wasn't true, because yes, what happened with the Broncos last year, what happened in Denver, and how bad Russell Wilson looked, and just how incompetent the team altogether looked last year, could go down as one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL. I mean, they couldn't get a playoff. They were like 29th in pre-snap penalties, couldn't score. If you were watching a Denver Broncos game, I mean, you saw people were leaving at halftime of that Broncos-Colts Thursday night game because it was unwatchable. So let's not harp on Sean Payton too much, because he is speaking the truth. However, Aaron Rodgers had something to say about it.
Means to you and what he can bring to this Jets team. That story goes out there. I had about 1 million texts from people in the coaching community saying that was out of line. Yet you see Hackett out here. He's still pumped up. I don't think it affects him as much as maybe it affects everyone on the outside. And yet you and him have this great bond and union together where you've always had his back. He's always had yours.
Yeah, I love Nathaniel Hackett. And those comments were very surprising. For a coach to do that to another coach. My love for Hack goes deep. We had some great years together in Green Bay, kept in touch. Love him and his family. He's an incredible family man, incredible dad. And on the field, he's arguably my favorite coach I've ever had in the NFL. Just his approach to it, how he makes it fun, how he cares about the guys, just how he goes about his business with respect, with leadership, with honesty, with integrity. And it made me feel bad that someone who's accomplished a lot in the league is that insecure that they have to take another man down to set themselves up for some sort of easy fall if it doesn't go well for that team this year. Thought it was way out of line and inappropriate, and I think he needs to keep my coach's names out of his mouth.
Man, Aaron Rodgers with the Will Smith on that one. Look, I'll say this. I haven't been the biggest Aaron Rodgers fan over the last few years off the field. I wasn't a big fan of Ayahuasca Aaron, as some people have known him, but I am a fan of killer, focused, driven, determined, going to take down the whole league Aaron Rodgers. And that's what looks like the New York Jets are going to get. And if that is what they are going to get, man, they very well could take the Buffalo Bills for the division. They very well could be a team that, at least for the next 2 years, because that's as long as Aaron Rodgers' contract is right now, could be a force in the NFL. And I don't know if I'm excited. I don't know if I'm more excited for this Week 5 game than I could be, because there's going to be some sparks flying in that game. And Peyton may have apologized, but there is some bad feelings for that one. So before we get into the preview, guys, for the Hall of Fame game tomorrow night, just want to take some time to thank my brand new sponsor, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. Thank you, Gabe, for sponsoring the show. If you guys need some phone repairs, laptop repairs, looking for a gaming PC or laptop, looking for an everyday laptop, and you're in Amarillo, Canyon, or Lubbock, go to the Phone Medic of Amarillo. And guys, make sure if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe and like button. On Twitch, follow me on Twitch. Let's get to the affiliate status for your Facebook people. Like I said, for the first couple of episodes, I'm streaming on my personal Facebook. After that, we are going to the Extra Point Facebook page. So we do have a football game tomorrow night. After tomorrow night, we have football every week until February, baby. And it might not be the best football. It might not be regular season football, but it is still sweet, glorious NFL football. Jets and Browns tomorrow night in the Hall of Fame game. I don't expect Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson or any of the big names to play, but we are going to get to see Zach Wilson. That was confirmed. Zach Wilson will play in this game. It's unknown how long he's going to play. But it is going to be interesting to see tomorrow night on NBC, 7 o'clock Eastern time, I believe. It's going to be good. I'm not going to lie. I am a Sunday night football guy. It's going to be good to hear Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, and the crew back in action at the Hall of Fame game. And, like I said, it's not going to be the perfect football, but it is how football is going to be here. And speaking of football, it is week 2, episode 2 of our big ass NFL preview. We're going to cover each division, every team. This week, it is the AFC and NFC North. I'm ready. Are you guys ready? Here we go. So we start in the NFC with the Chicago Bears. They were last in the NFC North. They had the first overall pick in the draft, 3-14. And I'll be honest, I caught some flack on my page for saying that the Bears might be the worst team in the league. And I'm not going to lie, it was close between them and the Texans. But just watching thank you, Jay Russell. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of talented guys in that Hall of Fame game. I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see it. It's always good to see. I like watching preseason football, just because you kind of get to feel for the team and guys you might not know. It's good for if you're playing fantasy too. But with the Bears, I said that they might be the worst team in the league last year, and some people wanted to jump on me like a trampoline. And you could make a pretty strong case that they were. And they just had no protection for Justin Fields. They didn't figure out, hey, Justin Fields can use his legs until about midway through the season. Now, there was a stretch there with the Bears where Justin Fields was must-see TV. He was able to connect with Darnell Mooney. He was able to connect with Cole Kmet. They had David Montgomery. So there were some seeds there, but it just was not enough for them to really get going. They had that win over San Francisco in the pouring rain in week 1, but that was about it. Now, this season, they start off, first 5 games is going to be Green Bay, Tampa Bay. They're in Tampa. They're at KC, Denver, and Washington. They play 3 of their first 5 games on the road. So not an easy schedule, but one thing that really helped with the Bears, I may have that wrong on the defense and offense. I know they were ranked pretty low, so I'm not going to show that one. But they did add. So they had a ton of cap space. With the draft, they got a lot more draft capital with it. They added running back Donta Foreman to replace David Montgomery. Wide receiver DJ Moore came in, and he's really gonna add to that passing attack, give Justin Fields a really good target to throw to. And they had Robert Tonyan. He's bringing some experience to that tight end position. Tremaine Edmonds comes over from Buffalo. DeMarcus Walker there on the defensive line. So they're improving. This is going to be a team that is very much in a rebuild. I would imagine Matt Eberflus is getting plenty of room to work with, plenty of rope to hang himself, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But yeah, the Bears were not a team that was easy to watch. In fact, they were the 29th ranked defense. 29th ranked defense in the league, and they were right down there on the offense as well. So the Bears were very much a team that was just in complete disarray. What I'm watching for with the Bears this year is I do want to see Justin Fields get better throwing, and that's what a lot of people were saying, is that Justin Fields has improved on his throwing. I'm not a big run-first quarterback type of guy. I don't think they're sustainable in the league. They're very susceptible to injury. Don't get me wrong. I want quarterbacks to use their legs, but there has to be a balance. And as you'll tell later on the show, I'm not a Lamar Jackson guy. Never really have been, because I don't think his style of play is sustainable in the league. And I don't think that Justin Fields has a sustainable style of play in the league either, if he can't improve his ability to throw the football. But if he can, again, you got Mooney, you got Kmet, now you got Robert Tonyan, DJ Moore. Donta Foreman is a formidable presence in the backfield, but there is going to be some steps that have to be taken with this team, and especially because they did lose some guys. They did lose David Montgomery. I got to edit that. I don't know why. I'm still figuring this out, folks. But they did lose David Montgomery, Equimini St. Brown, Riley Reif, Dante Pettis. And they had some really big losses, but losses that they could replace with young talent, because they have the cap space, they have the draft capital. They're able to overcome that and hopefully build this team. Like I said, Matt Eberflus needs to have more than 1 year. Ryan Poles, the GM, needs to have more than 1 year. And it looks like they are building towards the future, because they did have a really good draft. Darnell Wright coming in on the offensive tackle side to help one thing that they really needed a lot of help with, which was protecting Justin Fields. They bring in Jervon Dexter. They bring in Tyreek Stevenson, Zach Pickens, Rashawn Johnson. So they do have some good young talent. And Jay Russell, Khalil Herbert is also going to be back there with Foreman as well. So I would imagine the Bears, if they can get that offensive line fixed, they could have a pretty solid run team. And then you've got the threat of Justin Fields running in the backfield. And then you're also going to see DJ Moore, again, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, add to that passing attack. So I would imagine the Bears take a step forward. I kind of think they might surprise some people. So my prediction for them 9-8, second in the NFC North. The main reason is I trust Matt Eberflus as a coach. I don't know if Chicago is going to have just an all-out defense, but I think they're going to be able to score some points. I think they're going to be able to control games by running the ball. I think they're going to be able to control games by making big plays in the passing game. But this Bears team is a team that is taking some steps forward in an NFC North. Sorry, guys, you can hear Jeremy celebrating. But I do feel like the Bears are a team that could take some steps in the NFC North, especially because the NFC North is wide open. No Aaron Rodgers. The Packers look like they're on a downward spiral, and they are going to be a team that is right for a resurgence, especially because I don't think the Vikings, and you'll see later on in this segment, I don't think the Vikings are going to be much either. So, there's too, Jay Russell. Chase Claypool's there as well. So they got some receivers. The running back room is going to look really good. I've got the Bears at 9-8, second in the NFC North. I think they're going to surprise some people. I think this is a team that uses cap space well. They've got draft capital. A lot of people thought that they were going to take Jalen Carter and really shore up that defensive line, but they went offense because I think they really want to get this ball moving. So we'll see. The Bears are going to be an interesting team to watch this year. Which is kind of in contrast to what they have been the last few years. So we move on to the team that has run this division, probably has had a lot of attention around it the last couple of years. Green Bay, 8-9, third in the NFC North. Last year, they were eliminated from the playoffs by the Detroit Lions in the very last game of the season in Lambeau. They had to walk off of Lambeau Field as an eliminated team. Now, they were very balanced, 17th overall ranked defense, 17th overall ranked offense, and that's with Aaron Rodgers. Don't get me wrong, he was hurt, but Green Bay kind of succumbed to the problem that they have always had, and that is they would like to try and home grow their talent and not really bring in the free agents needed to push Green Bay to the next level, and I think that was part of Aaron Rodgers' frustration with the team. You had Aaron Jones, you had Christian Watson, you had Alan Lazard, but those weren't, aside from maybe Aaron Jones, those weren't really needle movers. Those weren't really guys that could go in and take over a game. Aaron Rodgers could, but he needed help. And the defense had holes in it. You got to see what Jordan Love was. Look, my co-host is coming in. We'll bring him in here in the next segment. Actually, we'll bring him in right now, guys. Welcome in to the Extra Point. One of my arch nemesis in the wrestling world, but somebody who's going to watch pretty much every game of football with me this season. The one and only Nolan Phillips. Nolan?
I'm alive. I
you are. I've been like, where the heck is Nolan? Has he died or something?
Technically, yes. No, my internet, or not literally my entire block, was knocked out. Yeah. And I had to switch phones today, so you probably don't have my new phone number yet.
Okay.
So as far as I've dropped off the face of the planet for about 5 hours. But I'm back alive. So
there you go, guys. Nolan's probably gonna be somebody on the show a lot because we're gonna be seeing every game together. We're on Green Bay right now. So as I was saying, they were 8-9, third in the NFC North last season. 17th overall ranked defense, 17th overall ranked offense. They kind of succumbed to what's been a criticism of them for a long time, in the sense that they don't really bring in outside talent. They like to kind of grow their own, and that kind of left Aaron Rodgers hanging.
And it's felt like that for years. Even when they start going into the draft, it's like, ooh, Aaron Rodgers went this guy, and they're like, nah, we're gonna draft a punter. And it's like, wait, what are we doing?
Yeah, I've questioned a lot of the draft choices with Green Bay, and you look at their first 5 games this season: at Chicago, at Atlanta, New Orleans, and Detroit at home, back to back, at Las Vegas. Man, I could see them losing back-to-back games in Atlanta and New Orleans. Maybe 3 in a row to Detroit.
But they could also get on one of those kind of weird streaks. It's very real possibility they could walk 4-1 out of that. Because I'm still not sold on Atlanta. I'm not sold on the Saints. I'm not sold on Chicago, and I'm not sold on the Raiders at all. But I'm not really sold on Detroit. I feel like is the only one that I feel like is a guarantee, almost not a guarantee because it's a rivalry game, but Detroit's on the up, whereas we don't really know what we have with Green Bay. So it could be one of those things we get a false sense of security, if they do rattle off a bunch of wins right there, and we're like, oh, maybe Green Bay is not so bad, but then we'll get into the tougher part of the schedule, and then we'll really have to see.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, because I think Green Bay's success all depends on what Jordan Love brings to the table. Jordan Love to me is a big wild card in this, and he didn't have a great start in the one start that he got last season. He came in and did have a good, I guess, 3/4 of a game for Green Bay when Aaron Rodgers, I think he went down with a broken thumb. But then that was it. That's all you got to see from Jordan Love. It's crazy because I was looking at something the other day. This is the first time since 1992 that Green Bay is going into a season without Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre as the starter.
I know.
It's nuts.
I feel like it's been my whole life. And I'm 36. So it's Jesus. It's 30 years. Literally where they, and it's just going to be weird. Are we going to have that kind of longevity with a Jordan Love? We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But sometimes with these young guys, I think too much we expect them just to jump in and be oh, CJ Stroud's going to take his team to the playoffs already. Why? Because he had such high expectations. It doesn't have to be that. It might take a little while. The Prince over with the Jaguars, he wasn't doing so hot. And the first half of last season was still kind of in. But when they came on, it's they finally figured it out. They got that thing and they were on fire.
The one thing I think Jordan Love has is the fact that he has sat for multiple years. And he's studied the game behind Aaron Rodgers. He seems to have his support. Aaron Rodgers called him and said to just be yourself. And I'm thinking that with Jordan Love, again, man, that's going to be.
I mean, you got to also remember. That's essentially what happened with Aaron Rodgers. He sat behind Brett Favre for a number of years, and he got the opportunity to just sit under the learning tree, so to speak, instead of just being thrown into the fire.
But when Favre went down, because I remember a couple of times, I believe it was the year or 2 years before Aaron Rodgers, before he was gone. Rodgers took over on a Thursday night against the Cowboys, and he took over when Brett Favre went down. And I don't think anyone really had a bunch of questions about Aaron Rodgers like they do with Jordan Love. And then you look at what they've added this season. In free agency, they really only had one notable addition, and it was on defense with cornerback Travarius Moore. And they lost more than what they added, I think. You see what they lost, Rodgers, Lazard, Tunyon, Mercedes Lewis, who, again, he was on his way out of the league anyway. Mason Crosby's gone. So some iconic Green Bay Packers names are not
there. You say Crosby, I immediately think crossbar.
But. Yeah. But look, and then now I will say this. I do like who they drafted. They went defense in the first round. So they go defensive end Lucas Van Ness, who's probably going to give them some help on the edge. Tight end Luke Musgrave, who's had some good reviews. Jaden Reed, they do get a receiver out of this to replace Alan Lazard. Defensive end, defensive tackle Colby Wooden. Mike LaFleur has, done well in developing his own talent. Christian Watson had some big plays last year. Is this enough, though, to support Jordan Love, do you think?
I don't know. I really do not know. That's what I'm saying. They're very much that team that's kind of in the middle where I'm I don't know where they could go. They could easily start 0-5, but they could also surprise and go, like I said, they could streak off 5 wins right there because of the level of competition they're going up against. They're all kind of in that same kind of level. So it is kind of a coin flip on all those games. There's no game there I'm really looking at where I'm guaranteed win, guaranteed loss. So just looking at the beginning of the season, it's almost regardless of how well or how bad they do, I feel like it's going to be a mask to a certain degree because like I said, it couldn't be almost like a flip side, almost like how the Jags were last year, where it's like that first half of the season, it was really tough going, but you could see those glimpses is like figuring it out, and it's just like somewhere in the middle of the season, maybe Jordan Love just pops off.
See, looking at that
I think
schedule,
the opposite could happen. It could be like the Steelers were a couple of years ago, where it's like, well, the competition wasn't so good. Oh, we're 10-0. Yeah, but you didn't beat anybody. You play anybody that's worth a damn, you don't do anything. So
I look at those first 5 games because I don't know if you saw the first part of the show. I picked Chicago to go 9-8. I feel like they're a surprise team in this division. I think Minnesota and Green Bay, kind of the establishment teams on this, are on their way down.
Yeah.
And Chicago and Detroit have been the ones kind of making some significant steps forward.
I think Detroit will take the division, honestly. And like Chicago, I mean, they were so poor last year and actually winning games, they have no option but to go up. Unless they just literally decide to become the worst team in the league. Like that's the only further way down they go.
That's going to be impressive if they do it after having $140, $150 million in cap space this past year and trading away all of their draft picks. Now, I will say this. I'm on Green Bay on a downturn. I've got them going 7-10, last in the NFC North. I don't want to say the wheels are going to come off, but the lack of talent is severely going to show up for them.
Yeah. We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, it might also be one of those situations where it just doesn't have a hole, but it's just they all gel together.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm still like, they're definitely, like I said, they're definitely one of those teams who's like, I don't know it. Because it's also Green Bay. Like, you always have high expectations just because of, like, their existence.
It is Town. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
so we move on to the team you said was gonna win the division. The Detroit Lions, 9-8 last year.
Caps left and right. That's all they're gonna do.
Yeah. Well, did you hear what they tried to do? What Dan Campbell tried to have approved?
What?
He wanted to have an actual lion on the sideline this year.
No, he did not.
Yeah.
He did not.
Here's the craziest part.
You'd be a furry, if anything.
He wanted to have an actual lion on the sidelines this year. Here's the crazy part. Ownership approved it. The only people that denied it was the NFL.
Or the players?
No, like the league denied it.
Okay.
So that's what you're getting with Dan Campbell. But whatever he is doing is working because Detroit was one of after the season before, they were they were just awful.
Even the season before when they weren't playing well, they still seemed to gel with their coach. Like they really felt like even in losing, they were going to go fight for that guy because he was going to fight for them. And you can feel that energy. Like you could see that energy on the sideline. Like it just comes through the TV. And that's why I feel like they're on the up. I mean, they've developed better. Goff, I feel like, was definitely underrated last year because the Lions defense was doing so well. But then you look at like Goff's stats, you're going like, oh crap, he was top 5 in a couple of different statistics.
Well,
but it was very silent because it was Detroit, you know.
If you look at their offense, Detroit actually had the 4th overall. They had the 4th overall offense. Defense was their weakness, though. They had the 32nd ranked overall defense. So, but they look, with the exception of Aiden Hutchinson. You know, Aiden Hutchinson, I believe he had 3 interceptions, 3 sacks. Like he was one of the few rookies to have that stat in his first year. And if you look at their first 5 games, they open up the season at Arrowhead.
That's that one I can't. Yeah, you can't go. Sorry, that's a loss.
Yeah, I mean,
but if they come away with a win right there, I mean, everybody's gonna be talking about Detroit moving forward.
It's either gonna be a loss or we're getting because if you think about it, it's a rematch of that shootout that happened on Monday Night Football between Mahomes and Goff, where both teams are putting up 50 points. So it's either gonna be a loss.
Was that the game where the tight end just destroyed me?
I think so in fantasy.
Yeah,
where you had like Mahomes and Goff and whoever was playing in that game having 40.
Yeah, I think I lost to 3 players.
Yeah, and it was like you only needed like 4 guys in that game to win the whole if you were winning that week.
Yeah.
So I think it's either going to be Andy Reid and the Chiefs getting the better of Detroit, or we're going to have a massive shootout on our hands.
That would be the expectation there. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, like everyone's going to, I mean, you'd be a fool to not pick the Chiefs, honestly, potentially in any game until we start seeing like injuries and stuff develop throughout the season. I mean, because especially when, I mean, people have tried to pick against the Chiefs the last 5 years, and it's been a fool's errand for the most part.
Yeah.
You know,
Very,
even when it's like, oh, we're going to go up against Burrow, and no, they got him too. So,
but the Lions did get better.
Yes,
they add David Montgomery from the Bears, who had a phenomenal season last year. Marvin Jones comes along. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who was a bit vocal when training camp opened up against the Eagles, but he was also fired up to play for Dan Campbell. Emmanuel Mosley comes over. I'm excited to see what the Lions do with David Montgomery, because him and that offense is going to give, they had a great offense last season. I believe it was the running back Williams who got suspended, caught up in that betting scandal. So David Montgomery,
didn't they trade him first though?
No, that was DeAndre Swift.
Okay, you're right.
So they traded DeAndre Swift to the Eagles, and they add David Montgomery. So I would imagine it's kind of a step to the side with that, because Williams was doing so good last year. But now that he's gone for the season, it's going to be a lot on David Montgomery again.
Well, but Montgomery could pull that way, because with Williams, it was yes, he was doing well. He had a lot of touchdowns, but like 75% of those touchdowns were 1-yard runs, where, someone else got him down there and he punched it in. So, I mean, guys who could do that are a little bit dime a dozen. So it's kind of a mass to a certain degree. I would think Montgomery would be perfectly fine with being able to pull that off too. Like, you're not going to be missing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and speaking of Williams, he actually, because of that betting scandal, he got cut. So they, it is David Montgomery's show in Detroit. They also lost DeAndre Swift in that trade. DJ Chark goes to the Panthers. Michael Brockers, Jeff Okudah, Will Harris, and they had the big trade last year at the deadline with tight end TJ Hawkinson.
Bastard.
So, but their draft was really good. A lot of people are high on Jahmyr Gibbs. So him and David Montgomery is probably going to be the lead back, but Jahmyr Gibbs is a rookie that you might want to watch out for Rookie of the Year. Jack Campbell, another one to help out on that defense in the front seven. A lot of people are excited about Sam Laporta, who's supposed to be a pretty good tight end prospect. Brian Branch comes in to help out at safety, and then they draft quarterback Hendon Hooker, who a lot of people thought was gonna go in the first round, who was a contender for the Heisman last year until he tore his ACL. If for you college fans out there, that game he had against Alabama brought a lot of eyes to him. So the Lions might have Jared Goff's replacement in mind.
And maybe at least someone that could sit under the learning tree, so to speak, and just get those reps instead of just being thrown to the fire.
Yeah, so I mean, I know we're like we've established we're both high on Detroit, but how high do you think they could go?
If they could pull off a solid 12, I think that would be a great season for them. So I do think that's going to be one of the tougher divisions, at least within the division itself.
Yeah.
Like there's no real clear-cut, like, dominant team. So they're going to beat the crap out of each other. So, yeah, if like Detroit could pull off 12, which I think they could, just considering for the most part they're not going to be facing off against, the higher-tier teams. Obviously, they're starting off against the Chiefs. But they were second in the division last year?
Yeah, second in the NFC North last year.
Because of the final game with the Packers, so they'll have a little bit of a tougher slate, but they're not going to be facing off against the hardest teams.
They're a gritty team, and they pull out
too.
Wins.
And they're gonna, and like we said, they're gonna fight for their coach. They freaking love their coach.
Yeah, so 12 wins. That's kind of where I got them. Not 75. I got them 12-5. I don't know why it put it.
You're putting in baseball scores.
12-5. I've got them at 12-5, first in the NFC North, making the playoffs as a division winner, and then we'll see where they go from there. Detroit hasn't really had a playoff win in a long time, since the Barry Sanders days, I believe.
When was the last time they had a home playoff game?
Was it the Dez Catch game? Or was that Green Bay?
That was Green Bay.
So
Yeah,
that was
Green Bay because Green Bay had beaten Cowboys twice. It's like whenever Cowboys run into Green Bay or San Francisco, that's when they tend to flub in the playoffs.
And they haven't had. So I'm mistaken, not since Barry Sanders, since Calvin Johnson, since it was Stafford to Johnson, because I remember they did get in the playoffs, and then
that
they got
one magical season they had.
Mm-hmm. So we go to the division winner and the king of the one-score games, Minnesota Vikings, 13-4. First in the NFC North. They lost in the wild card round 31-24 to the Giants, who, again, Minnesota played it close all year.
But they did that the year before, too. But it was just the flip side of the coin. They lost every game by one score. And then the next year, they just won every game by one score. So it's just like what, like you still, and then you also got Kirk Cousins, where it's just Kirk Cousins can't win the big one. He can't win in primetime or whatever. So it's just like, how do you expect? Do you expect the team from last year that's going to pull it out by their bootstraps, or are they going to be the team from the year prior where they start falling apart at the end of the game? Yeah. So I don't know.
I'll say the most impressive win they had last season was that comeback against the Colts in early December, where they were down 33-0 at the half and pulled it off. Now, Minnesota, their first 5 games, they go Tampa Bay at Philly, Tampa Bay at Philly. They are home against the Chargers, at Carolina, and then they play KC. So they play the 2 Super Bowl teams in the first 5 games of the season. So we're really going to see what Minnesota is made of.
The Chargers are going to be a tough one. I think Carolina is going to be one of those sneaky teams this year. I don't have any stock on the Bucs, though.
No, not at all. I believe they'll start the year 1-0 unless the Bucs just pull a rabbit out of the hat. I feel like
if they're starting with Baker Mayfield, it's always possible, just because despite how bad he tends to be a lot of times, he's one of those guys who does tend to pull something out of his hat every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. Like, I feel like with Kirk Cousins, you're going to get what you're going to get. We've seen the best of Kirk Cousins. We've seen the worst of Kirk Cousins. And again, it's like you said, flip a coin, depends on the day. We'll see who it has. But Minnesota did manage to have the 7th overall offense, 31st overall defense.
At one point, weren't they the number 1 offense and just kind of petered off, like mid-season? I feel like they were at least number 1 at one point.
I believe
they were just on fire, and then they ran into Dallas, and Dallas put that beating on them. And they did win games after that, but it was a little bit more of a slog as opposed to how they were doing before.
Yeah, I look at Minnesota again. They knew how to win it in the end. They found a way to get it done in the end. And like you said, they just ran into Dallas last year. To me, this is going to be it's a numbers game for them. It's going to be a sum of what they've lost and what they've gained. So they add Brandon Powell, Josh Oliver, defensive end Marcus Davenport. I believe they re-signed one of their key defensive players. Hey Hunter, how's it going, man? But one thing that a lot of people are excited about, we'll get to that here in a second. One of the big stories is Dalvin Cook, who's at the middle of this running back market thing. He might be joining Aaron Rodgers in New York.
Yeah.
They lose Adam Thielen. They lose Irv Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, Patrick Peterson is gone. So those are some big names that they've lost. But their draft had a lot of people excited. A lot of people are excited about Jordan Addison with what him and Justin Jefferson are going to do. Jefferson has come out.
I was about to say, you still got Justin Jefferson. I mean, arguably the best wide receiver in the league right now.
Probably. And you still got Hawkinson, who after going through a lull with the Lions really came on once he went to Minnesota. I think that might be one of the best wide receiver duos in the league is Addison and Jefferson. Cousins is good enough to get them the ball evenly and get them the ball in key situations. But
it's that defense.
It's the defense, and it's the fact that they lost their best running back, the fact that they lost Dalvin Cook. That's going to be bigger than I think a lot of people are talking about.
Well, and Dalvin Cooks hasn't gone anywhere just because all the situation with the running backs in general. Like I actually saw something yesterday. Out of the 32 teams, 15 running backs, so almost half, like right about half, are either been cut, left the team, or were traded.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all over the place right now. And you got some that are really good running backs, like Dalvin Cook, that still haven't been signed. You know,
Well, Cook wanted the extension before
yeah.
they gave him the option, and Minnesota didn't want to do it.
Teams just don't want to pay it because again, they know I'm going to run this guy into the ground for 4 years, and then I don't have to pay him any money because he's going to be broken by then, and that's just the state of it.
I was about to bring that up. That 4-year rule that you usually see in the NFL with running backs. Usually, you get 4 years of prime production out of an NFL running back, and then the production, I don't want to say it falls off a cliff, but it does significantly go down. And Dalvin Cook had just finished year 4. But
because we see it happen like that all the time. Like we saw it with Ezekiel Elliott. We saw it with Marion Barber, a while back with the Cowboys. He had that one uber fantastic year, and they trade him to, I want to say, the Titans, and then you just never hear from him.
Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, once they hit that 4th year,
like, it's rare for us to see that, like, that back who gets on the top guy for a number of years. Like Derrick Henry kind of seems like he's the one that seems the closest to have had that longevity, which is kind of weird because he came in and he started off kind of poor, and then came on. So he's a weird anomaly that sticks out.
Le'Veon Bell too. He wanted that big contract. But
I'm still not sure if that was more of an issue because of the holdout and then going to the Jets. So that's a definite.
You might be right on that one.
It might not be talent necessarily, but I mean, you sit out for a year, you're gonna get rusty. I mean, I don't care what you're doing, that's what's going to happen. So,
and what I think, if we'll get in, I got one more thing on the running backs to get to in between the divisions, because we did have a very interesting running back situation happen this week with the Colts. But my prediction for the Vikings, I got them 8-9, 3rd in the NFC East. They've added the talent, but again, I think Dalvin Cook not being there, they didn't do well when he was injured. And Kirk Cousins,
you have to box up when you have to deal with him, which allows Justin Jefferson to get out there and get open. When you're not being threatened by that running back, you're going to duel up on Justin Jefferson. So,
well, now they're going to have Addison. They're going to have Addison to worry about. But
I still think a strong running game would be far more beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the speed on the outside is going to be nice, but you still got to be able to pound the ball. So LC, good to see you, man. Thank you, sir. Thanks for tuning in. So before we get to the AFC North, which is going to be very interesting this year, did you see what happened with Jonathan Taylor and the Colts?
I mean, him just asking for his release and say being like, no, not until I die.
Well,
something like that.
Yes, he had that weird quote about, if I die and Jonathan Taylor's out of the league, no one's going to care. That's that weird quote that he had.
Yeah, I don't know.
So NFL Network, let me find it real quick.
Okay.
NFL Network was out at Colts camp, and Jonathan Taylor was there. He was doing one of those those hold-in type of deals. And so he was at Colts camp. He was at practice.
So he's not holding out yet.
No, he's not holding out, but they may not have it. They may not have it online. So Jim Irsay pulls up to the practice field in a bus, like a private bus, and pulls Jonathan Taylor off the practice field to go have a conversation with him.
Okay.
That's probably one of the most sociopathic things I've seen. And I mean,
tell me it was a school bus, because that would make it so much better.
That would be so awesome.
He just drives up, just hey, get it.
No, he pulls Jonathan Taylor, and then he goes to the podium and says something about how they were looking at putting Jonathan Taylor on the non-football injury list because he had some kind of back injury that he had reported or that he had not reported while training in Arizona. Jonathan Taylor then requests a trade and says there was no back injury. Jim Irsay just doesn't want to pay him. So it's looking like the Colts, who have a rookie running back, a bevy of players that were lost to the betting investigation, might be without their best player on the team.
Oh yeah, they're going to be in the dumpster for sure.
Yeah,
this whole thing.
And we've got the South next week.
Yeah,
let's say Jay Russell, man, with the comments. So yeah, I mean, dude, we'll have the South next week, but the Colts, man, they're the only team. When I have my spring predictions for records, they're the only team I've had to change, and we'll see what. Yeah, well, we'll see how bad next week. So let's move on to the AFC side of things. The AFC North, we had the Cleveland Browns, 7-10, last in the AFC North last season. They made the big trade for Deshaun Watson, who was suspended 11 games. They ended up starting Jacoby Brissett, who was actually playing really well. But they lost some pieces. No Odell Beckham anymore. You had some issues with the running backs. What were your thoughts on Cleveland last season?
It was a clear step back, in my opinion. I mean, they've lost even more pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously it's going to be a step back because, has it been 2 or 3 years since they went to the playoffs?
They last went with Baker, so it's been about
3.
Yeah, and they lost Baker. They traded Baker last year to Panthers as well for peanuts.
And I know you are high on Deshaun Watson coming from Houston and everything, but just in general. But I don't think he's the guy anymore. He's lost seemingly a lot of steps from all that time he was away. It's like you would expect, okay, he comes in the middle of the season, he starts cooking a little bit, kind of treat a little bit as a preseason thing, at least get back into the rhythm of everything. And he never seemed to really get there. Now, did he spend a whole lot of time in the offseason working with his guys? Maybe. I mean, if I really wanted to be winning like that, I'd be like, okay, yeah, we're at the playoffs and everything. We're going to start working for the next season right now if you're going to take that kind of leadership and actually improve and everything. But especially considering their division, I can't see them climbing out of the hole they're currently in.
They were the definition of middle of the pack last year. On both the offense and defense.
It was almost like nothing even exciting. Like they were just a team.
Yeah, and they were a team waiting on somebody as controversial as Deshaun Watson. And they gave up a lot to get him. I mean, I'm not gonna lie when I say this year as a Texans person, I have a vested interest in seeing the Browns lose. Not gonna affect my decision, but mainly because if the Browns do really bad, the Texans get their draft pick. Texans traded away their draft pick in the draft day trade to get Will Anderson. But looking at their first 5 games, they open at home against Cincinnati. Now I will say this: they do have the advantage. They play. They have an early bye.
I don't like that.
No,
you never want to have an early bye.
No, you always want it to be right in the middle. And they play 3 of the 4 teams in all of their division within the first 5 weeks. It looks like they open up against Cincinnati. So then they go to Pittsburgh, Tennessee, which I think could end up being a win for them. Home against Baltimore. Then they have the bye week.
And they come right back to the 49ers.
Yep. And so tough schedule to open up.
Brutal slate for them. And like I said, they have arguably one of the toughest divisions because you can arguably see like Bengals feel like they're on the top. Pittsburgh is always kind of in the mix. Baltimore, as long as they can keep Lamar Jackson healthy, they'll be in the mix as well. So, like, you got 3 teams in your division that are almost perennial playoff teams. So it's like, what what do you expect, right? And you got them all right at the front, and you got a team that was one game away from the Super Bowl the year before.
And a lot of people argue that they could have won that game if their quarterback hadn't gotten hurt. So you're looking at somebody who thinks they're the uncrowned NFC champion. But
at the same time, San Francisco is also a team that seems like every time their quarterback got hurt, they brought in a backup that was better somehow.
Well, yeah, they've always done that. It's a Shanahan system. They've always done that.
Quarterbacks backwards, like. But we'll see. Now it seems like they're moving forward with Purdy, so we'll see.
Yeah. And they are, and they're going to have a decision to make with Trey Lance. But that's we'll have the West in our last part of our NFC, our big ass NFL preview, as we will finish with the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. But as far as the Browns go, they did lose their backup. They add Josh Dobbs, Elijah Moore, Marquise Goodwin, tight end Jordan Akins, who's got a rapport with Deshaun Watson and has been productive. Defensive end Agmania Okwankwo, one of the Texans guys that was there the last year he was there. Dalvin Tomlinson comes over. Rodney McLeod in free agency as well. Now, there are some guys that on this list that do hurt. They do lose Jacoby Brissett. Kareem Hunt no longer on the team after wanting to get more carries. Darnell Johnson also departs the team as well. Jadeveon Clowney departed the team. He was one of the guys that had some words to say about the team that he was not going back to Cleveland on the way out. And then they lose the defensive end Chase Winovich. Do you think the guys that they added are going to be able to overcome what they've lost?
I don't know. Because, I kind of see where Kareem Hunt's coming from, but at the same time, the times where they gave him the rock more than Chubb, they did worse. Like the games, like I looked at that exact comparison. The games where it was more of a dual back situation, they both did better.
Yeah.
Games where they had to lean heavily on one or the other, they both did worse. So like they were like the perfect marriage, so to speak, as far as running backs are concerned, that dual threat. And I think it was being able to, have them, work different styles or just giving them that rest. Kind of like, you look at Dallas when they had, Zeke and Pollard. Now we'll get to see, Pollard be the guy. I don't know, because it was a dual threat scenario, So I think that's still a huge loss for them, because then, like, they won't have that backup. Brissett was playing pretty damn good. Like, they're like, yay, Deshaun Watson, we can finally use him. Why? You got someone, for all intents and purposes, kind of a hot hand for you right now.
Yeah.
Because Jacoby Brissett was doing very well. And then I just went, nah, we got this guy. We're bringing on the money. We're going to use him.
I want to say Brissett. Let me look him up real quick. He was one of the better quarterbacks in the league until they Deshaun Watson came along. Let me see where he was at, because I know he was at least – let's see, where was he there? Yeah, he was almost a top 20 quarterback before Deshaun Watson came along. He had almost 3,000 yards. He was averaging, 163 per game, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions.
That's nothing to sneeze at.
No, it's not. He was doing really well. And
89 QBR.
He was that solid, steady hand that had always been there for multiple teams. Now, the Browns didn't have much in terms of the draft because of the Deshaun Watson trade, but they were able to pick up wide receiver Cedric Tillman, defensive tackle Siaki Ika, offensive tackle DeJuan Jones, defensive end Isaiah McGuire. Those were the notable draft picks that they had. I feel like the Browns have lost more than they gained. And
it's going to come down to resting on Deshaun's shoulders, really.
Well,
he's going to be able to turn back the clock, so to speak, and play like he did when he was in Houston.
Yeah, and his last year in Houston, he led the league in yards. He's got solid receivers with Amari Cooper. I believe it was I'm trying, his name's on the tip of my tongue, but they also got the tight end. He developed a good rapport with David Njoku. So they were able to hook up. Deshaun Watson's also pretty good with his legs. So it's all going to matter on which version of Deshaun Watson we see, but I'm of the belief he's not the guy anymore. 700 days off from playing a game takes a toll on you. We saw it. What was it? I think you posted in our group chat in the red zone. He was like, he only had an 8% scoring percentage in the red zone.
It was something stupid low.
Yeah, it was bad. And so my prediction for them, I got them at 6-11, last in the AFC North.
I don't even think it was red zone. I think it was just shots into the end zone.
Oh wow,
I think it was just passes into the end zone. Yeah,
he didn't look like himself. Don't get me wrong, 700 days off, that'll do that to you. But it's gonna be a matter of which one he gets. He's got a full off season with the team. He's going to go through a full training camp because if you remember, he had to leave. I believe it was at the start of training camp was when his suspension came down. And so he didn't get a full training camp with the team. He got one preseason game, and that was it. But yeah, the Browns,
that's what I'm saying. If he actually like went out of his way to work with his guys in the offseason, like, okay, we're not in the playoffs. We need to start right now.
Yeah.
Like take that leadership role and be like, we're going to go work on this now because we clearly need to work on our, repertoire, so to speak. So
I've heard some people wanting him to be on that quarterback series on Netflix like that. They're saying that might be must-see TV. So we'll see. We'll see which Deshaun Watson we get. We go to the Browns, big boogeyman, so to speak. The Pittsburgh Steelers. They were 9-8, surprisingly, third in the AFC North. They had the only quarterback taken in last year's draft in the first round, Kenny Pickett, under center.
Still sounds like a cornerback name to me. I'm sorry.
It does, right? Or it would be a good quarterback name.
Can he pick it?
But yeah, they, the Steelers were surprising, and Mike Tomlin again continues his streak of never having a losing season. He somehow managed to pull it out and even had the Steelers kind of in a loose wild cards conversation.
It was close. There was 5 teams that could potentially have that last slot going into the final week.
And they were one of them. Now, the big thing that happened was TJ Watt going down.
Yeah.
TJ Watt going down really hurt that defense. But before he went down, that defense was playing with its hair on fire. They were all over the place.
Well, those Watt brothers are nuts. That's why.
No, yeah. And they get the 13th overall defense, the 23rd overall offense. They still needed some help. But one of the positives of that offense was George Pickens and the catches he was making. Jay Russell, I was about to get to that. Pickens had an insane catch. If you
yes, I did.
He had an insane catch in training camp.
Yeah.
The other day. So
why are you putting so much energy in training camp? We don't mean pulling that stuff off. Say that for the game.
You gotta have that training camp Superman mentality, man. You gotta go. You gotta get it. But looking at their first 5 games, they don't have. I mean, they open against San Francisco, and that's going to be a physical game because San Francisco likes to bring it. However, a big thing that we need to keep an eye on with San Francisco, especially going into this game, is the Nick Bosa holdout, because that could last into the season.
Yeah.
And if it does, you take some of the teeth out of that San Francisco offense, and that might help Kenny Pickett some. But then they have Cleveland at home. They go to Vegas, to Houston, and then they play Baltimore at home. I could see the Steelers off to a good start.
Yeah, 3-2, 4-1 pretty easily, yes. I think.
Something like that.
I think that'd be in the positive after 5.
Yeah. I don't see them having, after those first 5 games, I don't see them having a bad record. I could see them being 2-2 by the time they get to Baltimore, and then that might be the toss-up game. TJ Watt's going to come back at full strength. They did add some guys. Allen Robinson, who's kind of become a journeyman wide receiver, get some help on the offense with LaRaven Clark at tackle, Isaac Samalo at guard. Armon Watts comes in at defensive tackle, Keanu Neal at safety. But they did lose some guys. Chris Wormley, probably one of the bigger names on that offensive line. So was Devin Bush. They lost a lot of linebackers.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it's probably a lot of guys that they brought in to kind of help mitigate what TJ Watt brought to the team. But I would say at least you should have kept Miles Jack, man. I mean, he was a solid linebacker for Jacksonville.
Where did he end up?
I'll have to look. I don't know if he signed it. He may still be floating out there, but I would imagine he got picked up. I'll have to look at when I start to prep for next week. But they did draft. Well, they again some more help on the offensive line, which I think is going to really help their offense Broderick Jones, but the guy everybody is excited for is cornerback Joey Porter Jr. going to the team that his dad played for. And if you haven't seen tape on Joey Porter Jr., he could instantly do what Sauce Gardner did last year and be one of the best corners in the league. Another guy that they're going to be excited for is Titan Darnell Washington. I think he's going to give Kenny Pickett a solid relief option. He can block. But the Steelers haven't really had that tight end option that they've needed for a while. I mean, I think the last tight end of note for them was what?
They got Freiermuth.
Yeah, Freiermuth, yeah. But I was gonna say like Jesse James, but yeah, they still have Freiermuth, so he might pair well with Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah,
with Darnell Washington.
How can you forget that name?
I know, right? Or as we called him, fried mouth.
Fried mouth.
But I mean, I'm excited. I think the Steelers hold pat, but they look better. They look like a team that's going to compete.
I still feel like they're going to be in the middle, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just a gut feeling on it. Yeah. So if they do improve, I'm saying at best it's 11 wins, but I'm still thinking closer to like 9, 10. It'll be around that area. It'll still be, above 500.
Yeah.
But I think they'll be fighting for a wild card.
Yeah, I've got them at 9-8, third in the AFC North. Just outside of the wild card again. I feel like you probably want to get another solid running back for Najee Harris because I think they're going to start trying to use him like you see Derrick Henry get used. He was used heavy last year, and I think he missed a game or two, and that was trouble for Pittsburgh. The defense, I think, is going to end up being better with TJ Watt coming back. And now you've got Joey Porter Jr. back there who might be in the Defensive Rookie of the Year conversation. But
I think we're starting off for sure.
Yeah. And I think, again, same record, but you're going to see improvement on the field. There's going to be some games against teams that are way better than them that they shouldn't have been in, that they're going to be in. Moving on. So we go to, again, this is a division of rivalries, man. You got the Cleveland hates Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh hates Cleveland and Baltimore. All of them hate Cincinnati.
Because it's Ohio, but
yeah, Cincy and Cleveland hate each other because it's Ohio. But we go to the Baltimore Ravens, 10-7, second in the AFC North, lost 24-17 to Cincinnati in the wild card. One thing to have note, they didn't have Lamar Jackson for a good part of last season. I believe they've even finished the season without Lamar Jackson.
And the fact they still went 10-7 without him.
And still managed to have the 10th overall defense and 16th overall offense. So respectable places for where they were, middle of the pack offense, but you're going to get that when you don't have your starting quarterback.
And yeah, how much better do you think that offense is going to be with the starting quarterback?
Well,
it depends. They're not going to be middle of the pack.
No, especially with who they've added. Their first 5 games, they open up against my Houston Texans in Baltimore. Yeah, okay, whatever. Then they go to Cincy. They play Indianapolis, at Cleveland, at Pittsburgh. So they got 3 of their first 5 on the road.
Is that whole division just beating the crap out of each other to start the season? That's what
I think
it looks
so.
like.
I believe the division plays each other to start the season and in the season.
So yeah, the whole division is going to be looking a little black and blue just to start the season because they're going to beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah, it could get down to whoever's healthy at the end because this has always been a real physical division, much like the NFC North.
Well, like I said, we already know Lamar is not necessarily injury prone, but I mean he's had a number of injuries. Burrow's already gone down with a calf issue, and we don't know necessarily how long that's going to stretch into and how, and calves are hard to recover from. Like I've had a calf issue with the wrestling and I still wake up on days I'm like, oh, I'm just having a bad calf day. It's just going to be tight for no reason. So I really do think this division is going to come down to who's alive at the end of the season. Yeah,
it's going to be whichever team is the healthiest, maybe with the exception of the Browns, might escape with this division. But
they would need
everybody to get hurt.
Yeah, just take the helmets off and just start clubbing heads. Like, just
you want to pull the whole Mason Rudolph,
straight up NFL blitz style,
the whole Mason Rudolph. But you look. Here's the thing, though. Here's what kind of raises some eyes about Baltimore. Look at who they added. Odell Beckham Jr. comes to the Ravens, and we're gonna, a lot of people are saying Lamar Jackson's finally got a receiver that can catch. I say it's gonna be a receiver that can catch his balls. But they add Josh Johnson, who's always been a solid backup in the league. Nelson Aguilar comes on, Daquan Treadwell.
And, Nelson Aguilar, since he's left the Eagles, has not been occasional hands Aguilar. He did much better when he was playing for the Raiders.
So I will say this. The Ravens did, because they got rid of – they traded Hollywood Brown, I believe, at the deadline last year. It was either at the deadline or in the draft. But no, it was in the draft, because I believe it was Arizona moving up. Yeah, it was Arizona moving up. So he goes to the Cardinals. So they lose somebody who is a speed threat, but they gain somebody who is a number one possession, can do everything threat with Odell Beckham. And like you said, Nelson Aguilar, since he's left the Eagles, has become a lot more consistent.
Which is weird.
Yeah, and well, it could be, just his situation, just whatever, which team he was on. What he has.
Maybe it took him getting traded to like really hatch down and be like, oh, I need to get this, fixed.
The big thing for the Ravens, though, is what they've lost, I think. They lose offensive coordinator Greg Roman, who was very much responsible for the way Lamar Jackson was playing. And a lot of people said if Greg Roman hadn't helped Harbaugh come up with the offense that was more suited for Lamar Jackson, he wouldn't have that MVP. Kenyon Drake is gone. Cornerback Marcus Peters leaves. That is a big one. Juwan James on the offensive line. They lose Justin Houston, Jason Pierre-Paul, and Calais Campbell. So some big names leaving the Baltimore Ravens. But they are another team that got a lot of people excited with who they drafted. Zay Flowers is a guy that brings some major speed to this offense. Trenton Simpson at linebacker to help them out. Tavius Robinson on the edge. And then I love this name, cornerback Hugh Blue Kelly. That's probably one of the better football names I've seen.
Sounds like a DBZ name. What are you talking
right? About? I'm like, that's a movie. But I'm looking at this Ravens team, and the big question is, can they stay healthy? Can Lamar Jackson stay healthy?
Specifically Lamar Jackson, yeah.
You and I have
keep him alive. He can be the guy, but he just seems to keep having issues. You and I, and kind of just in our group, which I'm hoping we can get our fantasy draft done on here. But you and I, and just kind of our group that does our fantasy team, we've had back and forth about Lamar Jackson. I'm not fully sold on Lamar. I feel like he improved his ability to throw last year, but I don't feel like his style of play is conducive to longevity in the NFL. He wants that big contract. I will say this. He is only one of, I want to say, 7 quarterbacks who has at least a 70% or better overall record, having played as many years as he did. And I'm not talking like one-off, couple of year type of guys. I'm talking guys that have been around for a while. But let me ask you this question. If it came down to it, game on the line, you need a throw. You don't need a run. You need a throw to win the game. Are you trusting Lamar Jackson's arm to make that throw? I would. You would see. I wouldn't. I'm not. I don't. He can make the throws. He can make them, but the guy's got to be wide open, and he's not going to. I don't think he's going to sit back. He's not going to throw you open like some of these other guys are going to. But that's what you have to do to succeed in the NFL. I mean, like with the really tight windows, like there's not a whole lot of QBs that actually manage to be able to do that on a consistent basis that don't get picked off all the time. He made the claim that with this new offense that he's going to be in, because they are looking to, I guess, have him pass more. He says he's going to throw for 6,000 yards with Odell Beckham Jr. I don't see that. I don't think he hasn't thrown for over 4. Wait and see. Let's let us see him do it. Because if in order for him to throw 6,000 yards, he would need what, like an average of like 400 yards a game? Close to it. I mean, with the extra game, it might be easier to touch. But he's not. Let's say he's out with a nagging injury 2 games, or it gets to the end of the season, you don't play the last game. So I'm saying 15 games. A good solid 15 games. That'd be an average about 400 yards a game. That's not going to happen. No.
And
I don't care who. Well, I mean,
especially for
we've
somebody
seen
that,
gunslingers go out there and do that, and they didn't get close to doing that. You know what I mean?
no, not
Like
even
he would have to be, I mean, marathon bombing in
yeah.
order to pull that off.
Peyton in the year he set the record at like what 53,
55?
5,400. Yeah, something like that. I mean, you have to have that kind of accuracy to do it. And not only that kind of accuracy, but you got to be able to sit back there and read the defense and know what's coming and know when to get into the right play to get that ball out. That's not Lamar Jackson.
You would have to have an all-time offense. You'd have to be averaging like 5 touchdowns a game.
The only
they only scored 28 today. Like it's a low day.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
How long has it been since Lamar Jackson's had one of his receivers break 1,000 yards? It's been a while.
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't even think Hollywood. I think Hollywood Brown may have done it once. Now, again, depending on which Odell Beckham we get, if we get the Odell Beckham that looked like he was going to win Super Bowl MVP, maybe. But they're going to rely on Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins and Lamar Jackson's legs. And Odell Beckham is going to be the shiny thing they put out there to get defenses to back off the run. And I mean, if Odell breaks 1,000, I think he barely breaks 1,000, and he's only going to do it because he's going to be vocal about it. So, but
they'll still always be. They're going to be in the hunt regardless. I mean, they still got the best kicker on the planet.
Yeah,
you know, like I mean, he'll literally win the games. So there's at least one game last year where I think he had 5 or 6 field goals in one game. I'm like, did y'all only score field goals? I think they still won because the other team wasn't doing anything.
With that, my prediction for Baltimore, I do have them at 11-6 because I think getting Dobbins, getting Edwards, getting Odell Beckham, drafting Zay Flowers, the team is going to get better. You know, they were kind of drifting these last couple of years. They get second in the AFC North, make it to the wild card round,
easy,
and then we see where they go from there. They've never really they haven't won a playoff game with Lamar Jackson yet because they got blown out by the Chargers. No, they did.
They've had 3. They've had 3 shots, right? I think they lost all 3 of those.
They won his first one, lost to the Chargers, and then when they got the number 1 seed, Tennessee pushed them around.
Rolled over them.
So we move to probably a team that's got a lot of eyes on them right now. The Cincinnati Bengals, 12-4.
I mean, they're a favorite
in the AFC North. They lost the AFC Championship 23-20 in a close one to the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of people last year were thinking that the Bengals had the Chiefs number because they beat them. The Chiefs had never beat Joe Burrow.
But they were calling it Burrowhead because he was undefeated, you know.
But that fired up the Chiefs. That Burrowhead comment, you don't mess with Patrick Mahomes like that, and he made them pay for it. And the thing is that the Chiefs kept letting the Bengals come back on them. Now, you look at their first 5 games. Again, we said they open up against Cleveland, then they go to Baltimore. They play the Rams at home. Then it's Tennessee and Arizona. I could easily see them opening up at 4-1. Maybe even
5-0 in there. Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. 4-1 seems more logical, but they could be one of our teams that goes straight open 5-0.
If they lose one, I think it's gonna be the Cleveland game. Because
they're trying to sneak up on them.
No, because they won't have Burrow. I think Burrow with the calf injury, I don't think he starts the season, and it might even be plausible to say he doesn't start the first 2 weeks.
If that's the case, then I think they would lose to Baltimore as well.
Yeah, so they might start.
Who is their backup? I don't even know who their backup is.
It's Trevor Siemian.
Yeah, exactly.
So so it's going to be a lot of Joe Mixon. It's going to be a lot of, I believe, no, they don't have Samaje Perine anymore. So
I think Mixon's been
he's been up and down
to get paid too. Like he's kind of in the same situation where like, I'm not going to.
Actually, I think he got his extension last year.
Did they?
Okay. I think he got his extension last year. But Mixon's the guy that's approaching that drop-off point for running backs. Like if and here's the thing, he was plagued by injuries early in his career. I think he had like a torn ACL his first or second year in the league. He was he had a suspension, I believe, for something he had done in college with a woman. So he had kind of an up and down first couple of years, but he's just started to catch on last year. But
Yeah,
you
great
look,
year last year.
the main thing though is that's also going to be a big question is protecting Joe Burrow. And now that he's got the calf injury, that's
Yeah.
going to be even magnified more.
Wasn't he the most sacked QB again last year?
He was close to it. It may have
He
been
was the year before, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the year before. It's the year they went to the Super Bowl. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
they were
was
the most
close to
sacked.
it.
And
And
then the
they
year
tried.
before, he got broken. So it's like he probably would have been the most sacked. Like they got to fix that O line because like if they get that O line fixed, they're potentially they're definitely going to be like they're already seen as like the number 2 team in the AFC, if not the entire league. But that is a glaring weakness.
Well, they brought in Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, and Lyle Collins. And while Kappa and Karras had solid seasons on the interior of that line, Lyle Collins was just awful. And he was a liability for Joe Burrow. But you look at who they add, they still have the 8th overall offense, 16th overall defense. But you look at who they added, they do add Orlando Brown, who I think is going to be an upgrade at tackle because I feel like Lyle Collins, he's done. He doesn't have it anymore. Sidney Jones at corner. I would imagine that's for depth. Nick Scott at safety. You look at who they lost though, and they did lose some names. Brandon Allen, who was a quarterback, who was a backup that had started a game for the Bengals. I believe Joe Burrow went down. I want to say it was like a calf injury. It was something with his leg last year, ankle something, and he actually got a start. But Samaj Perine, I feel like is a big one for him. Hayden Hurst is another big name that they've lost. Perine was a great 1-2 punch behind Joe Mixon. If you needed depth in your fantasy league, I picked up Samaj Perine and got some games won with him. Hayden Hurst was really good at tight end, and he had some big catches for the Bengals. Eli Apple, who's kind of bouncing around the league now. I believe he just signed with Miami.
He's one of those guys I don't understand how he keeps getting signed.
Yeah, right.
He seems to be more of a liability than like a help.
Von Bell and Trey Flowers.
Those are big.
Are the ones that they lose. But the draft, they focused a lot on defense in the draft. They bring in defensive end Miles Murphy to solidify that defensive line on the edge. Quarterback DJ Turner is one that I think people are going to be looking at. A lot of people were excited about the Bengals getting Jordan Battle, wide receiver Charlie Jones, and running back Chase Brown to hopefully make up for that Samaj Perine departure. You look with the Bengals. It was scary because having Joe Burrow carted off the field, and I believe that was a couple of days after Jalen Ramsey was carted off the field.
Mm-hmm.
So you're thinking the worst. You're thinking, oh man, Burrow's
we're already dropping like flies.
But with the Burrow injury, that looks like it's something they might be able to overcome. Do you feel like if they are kind of hobbled in the beginning of the season, that could come back and stop them from being a powerhouse in the AFC?
Powerhouse, I think it could potentially prevent them from getting like the 1 or 2 seed. I still think they take the division. I really do feel like especially with their offense, is just that explosive. Especially if they do shore up that O line. If they can just prevent him from having to run for his life or getting tackled, that'll be really good. Especially like I said, we know he's had leg injuries in the past, and he's now coming off of this calf strain, which is horrible. So you don't want your guy to be mobile. You don't want him to have to be running around like that, because if you have a calf strain like that, you're going to be more likely to have it happen again.
Here's the thing: Joe Burrow likes to run.
I know. And that's what I'm saying. I know. And if you're a defensive guy, you can't hit him anywhere else. So what are you going to do? You're going to grab him around the legs. You practically have to. You got to go for shoestring tackles. Otherwise, you fall on them. They're going to call a flag because there's fat guy flop or whatever the rule is.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll hinder them. Especially, it'll really see the kind of mettle that they have. Like if they lose in close battles, they can still kind of walk away with like, okay, if we would have had Joe Burrow, we would have been fine. If they get like just absolutely trounced by Cleveland somehow, like Cleveland comes down and looks like they're the powerhouse, yeah, now we got some problems. I think it really depends on if they lose, how badly they lose.
That first game is going to be important to see whether or not that O-line holds up, because you are still seeing, Myles Garrett,
Yeah.
who was a monster.
Who's a terror. He's an
Yeah.
absolute terror. He is the defense for the Browns.
Yeah, and they've still got a solid secondary. I don't think they have as good of a secondary as they used to, but man, like,
But I mean, just stopping Myles Garrett. I mean, you got some of these guys that these defensive guys that the lead. It's like if you don't stop that guy, you're not going to have a good day.
No, if it was me, Burrow's out at least the first game. He's not playing at all this preseason. I don't think he was going to anyway. Mm-hmm. But he's out at least the first game, because
just depends on how bad the strain is.
Yeah, but still, if he's coming off of something like that, and he's got to face Myles Garrett against an offensive line that has had questions the last few years, if I'm Zach Taylor, I'm not risking it. I'm saying, hey, let's go get Baltimore that doesn't have as scary of an offensive line or defensive line. Let's trot you out there against them. We can probably afford to lose a game against Cleveland if we have to, but Baltimore's going to be the one that's on our heels.
Here's why I think they would try to force it, though. It's a division game, which holds a lot more weight.
But it's at Cleveland, and by the time that Cleveland comes back around to Cincy, Joe Burrow's probably going to be at full health.
Well, yeah, I would expect that unless he gets broken in something else.
Yeah, and I would imagine that they'll be back at full strength. So I don't
think they would lose that one, but I just think it because that division is so tight, one division it's almost like the other games outside the division won't matter nearly as much. Like, you almost expect them to kind of be around the same as far as outside the division. I think it's going to come down to within the division who wins the most division games. Which one's going to come out 4-2, 5-1?
Yeah.
Or
I'll say this though, because I think outside of the division it's going to matter for the Bengals too, because you've got
the Bills have the tougher slate.
They do, but you've also got the Bills nipping at your heels, and they're looking to come back strong, as we kind of detailed last week. They feel like they've got a tight end, and they've made some additions to that roster that is really going to kind of set them apart. But I don't know, the wiggle room between 2 and 3, 1, 2, and 3 in the AFC is very close.
Yeah,
and it could matter. A game or two could matter. Could determine whether or not you're playing most of your games at home in the playoffs, or you're going to have to go on the road. Yeah. And I don't think the Bengals are going to want to have to go on the road to Arrowhead again. But I'll get to my prediction with them. I've got them 13-4, first in the AFC North. I need to get better at these graphics. I need to quit doing them at night.
To me, it's got all the information there. It's clear. It's not like, Right. So
I need to get the first in the AFC North. I've got them at the number 2 seed, and I've got them as the AFC champion. I think if you saw last week, guys, I had Philly as the NFC champion, so my Super Bowl pick is set. Cincy and Philly for the Super Bowl this year. And
I wish I would have been there for last week's.
Yeah. Well, hey, it happens. We got you covered. We have my buddy Curtis Brown. Thank you, Curtis, for coming on. We'll have you on. You're going to be on most of the season, I would imagine. We're going to have our other cast of characters around. But I'm excited, man. We got the Hall of Fame game tomorrow night. Are you going to be watching?
Already. Maybe. Well, my first day back at work is Friday, so I'm also like, do I want to actually try to go to bed at a decent hour instead of 9 a.m.?
Staying up all night.
Dude, I told you I'm nocturnal. Like, literally, the day after my last day working at school, I was up to 3 a.m. And I haven't been asleep before that since. So I got to readjust everything.
Yeah, same here. I got to get up, get the kids to school, everything like that. But I'm excited. We're after this week, we got football all the way through February and beyond. If you're like me and Nolan and follow the XFL, which we may be covering that here on this show as well. But I mean, I'm excited. You know, I'm probably going to be. We got Braden, my son Braden's birthday is tomorrow. So for those of you in the chat, wish him happy birthday. I'm going to try and watch the Hall of Fame game.
That actually reminds me. Did Ben DiNucci actually sign anywhere?
I know he got invited to camp.
At one point.
I know he got invited. I think he got invited to
the Broncos
camp. Yeah. Oh yeah, the Broncos. He got invited to like 1 or 2 camps. So let me see real quick. Ben DiNucci.
I don't know if he actually signed. I know he got invited.
He signed with Denver.
He did.
He
signed
backup. Yeah, as Russell Wilson's backup. Yeah,
well, he could have just replaced Russell Wilson. I don't think the only person who missed him would be Justin at this point.
Yeah, probably. So. Which I'm ready to get into that conversation with him of the Russell Wilson conversation.
Because you said that's going to be 2 weeks though for that one, right?
Probably, yeah. I'm going to try and get him on if he's not recording Cinema Slayers. Did you see? Speaking of, we covered this in the open of the show. Did you see the Sean Payton stuff when he fired?
When he's just trashing Hackett. Yeah, then Aaron Rodgers coming back, basically like threatening him Will Smith style.
Yeah. Yeah. We played that in the beginning of the show, and he's just like.
And don't they play each other like week 5? I think
week 5.
The Jets and Broncos. Yeah, so
Broncos
it's like here's a game that no one cared about. All of a sudden, now we care about it. It's almost like if we cut promos on each other, people will pay attention.
Yes, and then hold on. The worst part about this was Sean Payton saying he had his Fox hat on. And then everyone knows that whenever he was on Fox on that show, he never really had an opinion. So then when he leaves, he's all of a sudden got the hottest take in the world. No matter if he's right, because he is.
It almost feels like he's looking around and going, you know what? The Broncos are kind of hated because it's of the positivity of Russell Wilson with the Broncos let's ride. It just became a meme. So everyone hated on him. So he's like, I'm going to lean into the heel here. And we're just going to be the assholes of like, I know where you get the Raiders in a division, but no. We're going to take that crown.
Yep.
Like,
well, no, because then he gave some kind of half-assed apology that wasn't an apology, and then Hackett comes out and trashes.
Like he just came out and was like, "I'm sorry they sucked last year." Like,
that was basically what he said. I'm sorry you got offended. Like that's exactly pretty much how he put it.
I did not see that part.
That it was just the most half-assed apology that I had seen, and I mean, it's gonna be interesting. Week 5, I'm gonna have that game on. Well, hang on, I might not. I might be doing the Fox.
You might be working that weekend, won't you?
I might be working that weekend. I'm gonna keep my eye on it. I might be working that weekend with Fox down at the Cowboys game. But either way, that wraps it for the extra point tonight. Nolan, thank you for coming on, sir. We'll be seeing you more often during the season. But go have a good night. Get ready for school. All that fun stuff.
All righty. Peace.
Later, man. Well, like I said, that does it for the extra point, everybody. Thank you to Nolan Phillips for coming on. Thank you to my sponsor, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. Guys, next week, 8:30, we're going to be covering the AFC, NFC South, and I've got someone coming on who is probably going to have a pretty hefty discussion with me about the Oilers uniforms and the fact that they're wearing them against the Texans. So tune in next week. Go follow the Facebook page, The Extra Point with Ryan Justice. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Justice8908. Look up Ryan Justice on YouTube. At Justice8908 on, I'm still calling it Twitter, on Twitter. At Justice8908 on Instagram, Threads, Facebook.com/official Ryan Justice for the wrestling side of things. And speaking of wrestling, I'm going to be in Wetumpka, Oklahoma on August 11th. Make sure you guys check that out if you're in the area. And then August 27th, looking to be at the Midland County Fair. And then September's going to get crazy, guys. We got Motivate Pro Wrestling. I'm back at Squared Circle Pro taking on Fuego del Sol, former AEW star, and Game Time LC Mox. But guys, football season's almost here. We are creeping ever so closer. Watch the Hall of Fame game tomorrow night. And then a week later, the NFL preseason officially kicks off. But have a good night, guys. Thank you for tuning in.